Took a 10-minute shit.
Yeah. Could have been like, sorry, Patty, I got shit to do. Bye. No. All right. Welcome to what episode is it? Episode 79 of the PHP Town Hall. We are joined by our former host and cycling extraordinaire, Phil Sturgeon.
Hello there. How you doing?
I am good, man. It's good to have you back. We are all sober, so it's kind of weird. Usually one of us is drunk, but
speak for yourself. This is gin, not water.
No, it's not, because I would never. I know you. You would never drink gin just straight. But yeah, so we got Phil back on. He's been off the podcast now. We checked. It's been almost 2 years. February 18th, 2019 was the last time you were on the podcast, and I think suffice to say, to put it kindly, you have had quite the 2 years. You got kicked out of America. First, you rage quit a job. Then you got kicked out of America. Then you didn't know what you wanted to do, so you went to an island off of the coast of Africa, rode your bike, started writing a book, went to Spain, kept riding your bike, rode your bike all the way over to Poland, I think, because that's where the stoplight team was. You then rode your bike down to Morocco. Somehow you got to Morocco. I remember that part. The whole time we've been keeping a spreadsheet on how you're going to die. You haven't died yet. And now...
Costing me money, Phil.
Yeah, I know. That? Like, you're costing us all money right now.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
And then, let's see. Now, lately you have renounced your British citizenship, picked up Dutch citizenship, but you're still in England. You're quarantining for 2 more days, and your parents have all of your bikes. So what the fuck have you been up to?
That shit. You actually pay attention to things I say. I'm really not used to that. Yeah, basically, most of that was accurate. Like I cycled. Where did I go? From Spain to Albania, and then tried to do a lap around the Scandinavian countries, but fucked my leg, and then rested for a while. And then cycled down to Morocco last winter because it was too cold in England. And then what did I do? I've just been cocking around for a while, riding in circles, really. But yeah, moving to the Netherlands because Brexit. Brexit's a fucking mess. Just can't be dealing with that. So I've picked up Dutch residency, which is quite nice. Now I'm still having to try and figure out how to speak Dutch. It is a very confusing language, and I've not really tried beyond ordering coffees and whatnot. But I'm still in the UK planting a bunch of trees. I ended up starting a reforestation charity because the UK is we did 19% of our reforestation goals, and so it's the usual approach of if you leave it to the government, it won't get done. So helping them out a little bit. So I'm gonna split my time between the UK and the Netherlands. But rage quitting America was fun. I mean, Matt, you just told me about the audiobook you were listening to. What was that? It's relevant.
Yeah, the $1 Billion Loser. It's the story of Adam Newman and WeWork and his graceful exit and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting. 10 hours or so. It was an interesting book. I liked it.
Is Phil mentioned in the book?
You know what? I'm not going to lie to you. As they got closer and closer to the time frame that I knew Phil was there, I was like, am I going to hear Phil's name? Because that would be kind of cool, but no.
Everything was going great until...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really want to listen to that book because the whole story of going from some dude that did way too much blow at corporate events and had a serious Jesus complex to wandering around Union Square barefoot is just brilliant.
They talked about the Union Square incident. It was awesome.
For anyone not familiar with New York, that is I don't even know how to put it. That's the last place you want to walk around barefoot. You're walking on just layer upon layer of just vomit, piss, and slime, and it's just not smart. It's definitely not a beach. Even New York's beaches, you'll probably get a needle in your foot, but Union Square's not the place to go. So, that was pretty much why I kind of rage quit America. I kept working these jobs where I was tied to the visa, and 2 jobs in a row, right? I'm sure we covered this on past stuff. 2 jobs in a row went bankrupt. Not my fault, honest. But then WeWork just was crap. And for all three of those jobs, I was kind of stuck there with my visa because they're the non-transferable kind. So advice to anyone who's moving to America, really think about whether you want to move to America at all right now. It's a bit of a mess. But if you are, O1 visas are a bit crap for that, because if you decide you hate somewhere, you're stuck. You have to pretty much go home and maybe hope that you can do it again. So yeah, I left that job because I was incredibly burnt out and depressed and terrible. And the plan was I was going to get a new green card or a H-1B visa, which is transferable, when I joined Stoplight. And it took about a year to get that paperwork through, which is exactly when I was in Morocco. So I started whipping it north, trying to get back to the UK. By the time I got home, COVID had hit and the US embassy was closed down. So I couldn't get my shiny new visa that was right there. And then when I think COVID started to loosen up a little bit in the UK, that was when Trump decided to do a visa ban, to ban everyone who legally has a visa, regardless of. So that all worked out perfectly. And now I've given up. I just can't be bothered to try and move to America again.
So why the Netherlands though?
I figure if I'm going to pay taxes to someone and I kind of have the choice of which country it's going to be, I might as well do it to a country that isn't garbage. Like I have relative faith in the Netherlands doing pretty useful stuff. They always give out really impressive grants to companies that are doing interesting things. They're like at the forefront of climate technology and big change. Like pretty much anything you hear about, like inventing a way to do reforestation in the desert, Dutch company. Finding a way to filter water in a really efficient way, Dutch company. It's pretty much always a Dutch company that does it, because the government just give out money for that sort of research. And like even Precious Plastics, I think, a company where you can like recycle plastic in your house with homemade DIY tools. I think Dutch company. Like everything good is coming out of there. So yeah, I could move home and give taxes to the UK, but they would just spunk it on 5,000 miles of new roads, whilst everyone complains about 330 miles of trains. So it just doesn't make any sense to move to the UK, really.
So when this is a question I see a lot of people kind of ask you on Twitter and things like that. When you're out riding, let's say in Estonia, how do you work?
Yeah, I just kept I switched to using, what the hell SIM card did I have? When I started off, I just had the Sprint mobile, just bog standard American, the usual £150 contract or whatever American contracts are, which is a rip-off. I just took that with me, and I kept buying the bundle, like the roaming bundle, because when I started riding, I thought I was just going to be a month, and then I'd probably end up moving to the UK or something, so I didn't really know. But yeah, I just have the Sprint SIM card. It's got personal hotspot on it, and you would be amazed how good the internet is. I had 4G everywhere I went. Like maybe when you're at the very tippy top of an Alp, you don't really have the best internet. But when you're at the tippy top of an Alp, all you want to do is get the fuck down it because it's cold. So you're not going to sit there with your laptop right at the top. So yeah, generally I had internet the whole time. And even when I was in like the mountains in Morocco, in the Atlas Mountains, cycled away from the nearest city, and then cycled away from the nearest town, and cycled away from the nearest village. And there's just like one girl watching some sheep, and she's there scrolling through Instagram with 4G, right? Like everywhere has the internet now. It's bizarre. And annoyingly, that girl was an actual person that existed, and she was sat there watching me fail to change an inner tube on my bike for about an hour because I kept popping the new inner tubes as I put them in because I had a snapped tire lever. So she would just like look up from her music videos, laugh at me, and then go back to scrolling.
She's probably live streaming it.
I'm not surprised. Look at this twat, can't even change an inner tube, cycled up a mountain.
World star.
Yeah, right. So yeah, my internet was just Sprint for a while, and then 3 as a British one that is all right. They kick you off after a certain time, because if you've got a British SIM card and you go to a different country, then you're like roaming and it's okay. But if you go for more than 90 days, then they're like, you're not on holiday, you're taking the piss, and they just kick you off. So I was just like cycling around the middle of Poland, and I'm like, oh well, I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know, I don't have any data, and fuck. It's like cycled to the nearest petrol station and got any random SIM card, and then typed in like, where's my hotel again? I got so cocky relying on not needing paper maps that when my signal finally cut off, I was like, oh, actually, paper maps are pretty smart. Yeah, I've got a battery right here somewhere. I've got a battery pack that is 45 watt output. It's USB-C PD, and yeah, there it is. So this thing is pretty heavy for a battery pack, but I don't know why I'm saying this thing. It's a fucking podcast. Sorry, everyone. I'm out of practice. But I've got a battery pack, and that will actually keep my laptop charged for a while. I take it from 0% up to like 80%, and then it's red hot, and then it's dead. But it will give you some extra life on the laptop. So between the internet and having the laptop and everything being USB-C powered, and my bike had a dynamo on it, so I could just cycle for a while and charge up my battery pack, and then I'd be able to power everything again. It meant that I only needed to be in a hotel every like I could go 2 or 3 days without needing to find somewhere to charge up all my stuff. Pre-COVID times, you can just sit in a coffee shop and charge things up. Now you're kind of fucked. There's nowhere to really charge your batteries in COVID times. You can't sit down anywhere. You can't go in a coffee shop, and maybe you could kind of walk in somewhere and just say like, hey, do you mind if I plug my backpack in and just kind of like leave it all in the corner and then stand outside in the cold? But it's not really what you want. So I've kind of given up on touring in round 2 of COVID times, because these bigger lockdowns are worse.
So how does the logistics of that work? Are you like, do you stay in a hotel all day and that's where you work from? Or are you working on the side of the road? Like,
yeah, my job was mostly a lot of it could be done on the phone. Really, I was kind of, when I started touring, I was mostly writing code for Stoplight. I was kind of sending pull requests like normal, and then I kind of switched to technical planning and kind of writing issues for people to do at some point, and then kind of overviewing things and reviewing pull requests, which I could do on my phone, and like lots of meetings, like Slack calls and stuff. So mostly I just get up in the morning, ride my bike until Slack pinged about something, and then I'd like pull over and answer questions. And we had a 1 to 5 system, which was 1, answer this when you get around to it. 5, get in the ditch right now, pull over whatever Serbian farm field you're next to, get in the ditch and answer this question. Get your laptop out on the side of the road. And luckily 5s weren't too common, but yeah, I just kind of, the number of times I was literally just sat under a tree trying to hide from rain, snow, or sun, and like having an hour-long meeting while I hoped my battery didn't die. AirPods are really good sound quality. Like, you can use in an AirPod. I was literally cycling, and you just don't hear the wind. So
you don't hear the wind.
No, people genuinely said they don't get the wind. That's kind of why I got them. I had other headphones that was like, even when I was stopped still, like if I'm 100 meters away from a road, it sounds like shit. But with the AirPod Generation 2, they apparently are fine. Like, wind just doesn't really show up. They're doing something intelligent there. So yeah, I just have a lot of meetings, a lot of calls, and now a lot of what I do is product planning, right? So it's even more removed from writing code. So I'm kind of wondering about switching to an iPad, because I don't really need a full-blown laptop. But yeah, I just kind of, Monday to Friday, I'm generally in a hotel. And then on the weekends, I go on big adventures and wild camp, partly to keep my carbon footprint down, right? That was a lot of the bike ride was a experiment in how low I could possibly get my carbon footprint, and not in a way that like everyone needs to live this way, but in a how extremely low can I get? Because staying in a hotel, they've got to clean your sheets. They've got to kind of do it. What is it? They usually have extreme AC, and they have to clean all your sheets. So your carbon footprint is based off of like the energy related to cleaning. And then like eating meat, that the CO2 comes from keeping the animals alive for bloody years until they get them. So I was constantly looking into trying to wild camp to avoid CO2 from hotels, and trying to eat the lowest CO2 food I possibly could. And then like, obviously I'm cycling everywhere, so that's nothing. So I was just on like a constant mission to get it low. So wild camping 2 or 3 days out of the week, and then hotels so I could charge all my shit and take calls. the rest of the time.
Is that something you're still doing, or was that like an experiment you ran for a certain period of time?
That was about the first year was that. So 2019 was pretty much entirely that. I started in January, and I did injure myself somewhere in autumn, so I had to take 3 months off, and then I went back on the road down to Morocco. And then, so it was about a year of doing all that. And then, yeah, this year was more lockdowns and little bike adventures. And then I like snuck off to Poland on the bike and a few other things. Oh, fuck yeah. I cycled from England to, I cycled from Amsterdam to Warsaw in Poland. And then I cycled down to Croatia to run a half triathlon. Forgot about that one. So that, yeah, I forgot about that. So that was basically the same thing, just like camping and going wherever, and trying to do most of it off road as well, so I could like actually try and avoid all the major cities and not get COVID. So I managed to sneak through a bunch of like logging trails in the Slovakian mountains. That was weird, and lost my passport on the Austrian border, so that also sucked. But managed to go to Vienna and pick up a new one and get to the half triathlon on time. So it's all been working out.
Speaking of the triathlon, do I remember this right? And you accidentally did an Ironman?
Yeah, motherfucker. So I agreed to do this when I was drunk in July 2019. I was doing like a Croatian boat trip thing while I was there. And yeah, the boat captain poured us a whole bunch of drinks. It's called the Croatian 211. It's 2 parts, was it 1 part vodka, 1 part pineapple juice? No, 2 parts vodka, 1 part pineapple juice. Anyway, we got shit-faced, and he got us to agree to come back and do his triathlon that he was running. I could have sworn it was a sprint triathlon, which is like a little easy thing. And then it was a half Ironman, which is 2 kilometer swim, 90 kilometer bike ride, 21 kilometer run. And I trained for that by cycling the whole way there, sure, but I did a 5K run, a 6K run, and a 7K run like the month before, and I was like, that's fine. I fucking hated that. It was so bad. I got like 6 or 7 kilometers in, and I was like visibly crying, and then I just had to throw my carcass around, and it was boiling hot, even though it's in October, because Croatia. But yeah, that was not a well planned event. I mean, no, the event was wonderful. I didn't plan going to that event.
I'm so curious. When Europe is completely locked down, you sneak out of England to cycle to Poland and not get caught?
Yeah, they're really weird about the rules and the laws. I haven't broken any laws that I'm aware of, but basically they'll say things like, if you're crossing the border on the train, then you have to do a quarantine. But they don't care if you cross the border on a bicycle. Right. So if you take a train up to the border and then cycle and then take the train, you don't have to. It's just bizarre. There's other rules. Like I went over to the Netherlands to get my residency. Right. I'm legally allowed to travel from the UK to the Netherlands for residency-based purposes. No one fucking asked. At that time in the UK, it was illegal to go on holiday. No one asked what I was doing. And the Netherlands also had a ban, and they banned British travelers from flying or taking the ferry, but they didn't bother banning the train, right? And there's all these weird rules. Like Netherlands will say you need to legally have a COVID form to come back into the country, like a negative test. So I spend 200 euros getting a negative test, get on the train, come back in. No one checks. I don't know if it's because I come in at 11 o'clock and they were all like tired, but there's just no one there. So it's bonkers. I think rules should be much stricter, and I'm constantly surprised that they're not, but it's managed to fuck around a little bit. I mean, most of my adventures were before this kind of second wave everywhere, right? So spring and summer and even autumn, things weren't that bad, but it was kind of, as we came into November, it started to get really crazy, and that's kind of why I stopped traveling for fun and only did travel for residency.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we're still in our first wave because we can't get it under control over here. So at least y'all have waves.
Yeah, there was kind of this gap in the summer where we thought it was done, and then it came back. Like Yeah. Anyway, uh, Ben, you've survived COVID.
Yeah, I'm still here.
How was that?
It was pretty rough. Rough few weeks, but then it was over. Kind of felt like a superhero afterwards, right? I was like, oh, I'm immune now. So I'm a hero, you know?
I have well, like the steroid I take to stay alive is the same one they give people, like when they're in the ICU and the ventilator. So I'm like almost wondering, like, do I have a force field, like, kind of immune already? I don't know, but
Oh,
I'm also high up. I get the vaccine because of my girlfriend who's immunocompromised. So as soon as like she's able to get it, I get to go get it too.
oh shit,
Nice.
that's awesome. How long do you reckon that'll be until you're jabbed?
Yeah, I don't know. I live in Tennessee, which is a red state, and so it's a fucking mess, to be honest. We have like the city health department is still vaccinating older people, but now private companies are vaccinating teachers. So
Okay.
like, there's no rhyme or reason as to why. So we're hoping within the next couple of weeks, but I have no idea.
That's stressful. Suspense.
I mean, it is. I think I had this back like way back in January of last year. So not that like I'm running around without a face mask or anything, but at this point, you know, I've kind of it sucks because I've accepted the risks of like going out to the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I could do everything right and still get this thing, and it's if I'm just gonna die, I'm gonna die, and I've just accepted that, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Right.
I'll go out. I'll go out on top of the PHP community. I'll be a legend, and that's it's
It'd
definitely
be
not how
worse,
it's
you
gonna
know?
go.
You could
Absolutely.
start doing Ruby and then stop coding altogether.
Yeah.
Damn.
Maybe do a bit of TypeScript on the side, but that's not really programming, is it? So.
I mean, could end up in like project management, product ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. So I had a little stint as a DevRel, and I felt a bit funny about that because I've never really considered myself a DevRel. I'm just a developer that happens to do some Twitter and conference stuff, but that's because I'm telling people about the technical thing that I've done. So taking a non-technical role for a little while was a bit weird. I'm not sure DevRel was right for me, mostly because there's a difficult balance at Stoplight. They wanted me to tell everyone how great everything was, and it is great software, but I also wanted to help make it better. And when my job was mostly kind of telling about stuff that's done, I don't get to control the roadmap or priorities or which functionality should change or be removed or improved or anything like that. So I had a bit of a struggle just kind of telling people about what had been done and not telling people what should be done. So luckily now I'm a technical product owner, which is helpful. So being a technical product owner for a dev tools company is basically still like being a developer. You just don't really write any code. You're like, this tool should work in this way because as a developer who works with OpenAPI, I know what I need the tool to do. So could you make it work that way, please? So it's kind of it's like technical and not. It's weird. I occasionally write code, but mostly I'm just kind of writing Google Docs and product board.
And I get like you also probably have a little bit of added influence because I know you also are involved with the steering committee of the OpenAPI specification too. So because you have that connection to that group, and Stoplight is obviously helping OpenAPI specification development, like it kind of works twofold for you in that way.
Oh yeah, built-in job security. Try and make OpenAPI as confusing as possible, and then be the guru that reads it back to the company for money. Yeah, that's.
God damn.
It's genius.
It's so smart. Why did I not think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, joking aside, OpenAPI is actually getting a lot better. I think it used to be real confusing, and I'm really excited. I think you've been playing around with it quite a lot over the last little while, but it looks like you're using it more at work now, Matt. I don't know if you're like doing that testing stuff we were looking at.
Oh no, I mean we're I don't want to say we're 100% invested in it, but we are pretty heavily invested around using OpenAPI because we're doing a whole service-oriented architecture, microservices thing, and so like having these contracts to test against, because we're also I forget what his name is. It's right on tip of my tongue, but because we're using Laravel on our side, and he wrote a package to basically take your OpenAPI YAML file or JSON, whatever you want it to be, and running your PHP unit tests and your HTTP tests right against the contract, which has made it super simple to integrate with other services because we just grab their contract, run our tests against them, and then we've actually it's helped us pick up bugs in other services that we've reported. It's helped us find bugs in our code. And then of course, my boss is super cool. He lets we've both been contributing back to the project as a way to say thanks too. So
nice. Wait, what podcast are we on? We should talk about this on APAs You Won't Hate. Let's do moving on.
Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow at 8 a.m. my time.
You're right. Anyway, well, all I was going to say about that was that, luckily, OpenAPI v3.1 is about to come out. So anyone who's had a look at OpenAPI and thought this is confusing as shit, or has basically wondered why there's the discrepancy where it's kind of JSON schema but not quite, that's being solved in 3.1, which solves so many goddamn problems.
Yeah, that's a lot of problems.
Different bits of tooling and different everything. So you can just use any JSON schema tool and it will actually do the job properly instead of using a JSON schema tool that's been tweaked to understand the specific flavoring of OpenAPI's differences. So yeah, that's a pretty happy day.
It's also cool because the PHP community has kind of built a nice number of libraries around this whole thing too. So if you're looking to get involved or start using a contract, it's actually we have our community is pretty robust. We have some good packages out there. You should really write a blog post.
You should.
Fuck that. I was gonna write one about Spectator, the test runner that we've been using. And I was telling you this, Phil, but in order to write a blog post about it, I got to write a whole API so I can write the tests, so I can show how it works. And I Composer init a project or Composer create project, and I was just man, I'd rather just go ride my bike and eat hot chicken and not do this.
Yeah, that's where most of my projects die. Init, figure out a name instead.
Yeah.
I came up with a project last night, so I was feeling very ranty. So I was I'm gonna make a little website where you can type all of your ranty tweets and it just sends them to the void. So they don't get posted, so your boss can't read your terrible thoughts.
Yeah. And
I got halfway through and I'm I'm gonna go to bed, and now after a day and a half, I'm do I really want to continue that, or
isn't that what alts are for though?
Oh yeah, good point.
Man, that's a lot of work.
Run it on the alt, see how it works.
It's easier to just recreate Twitter than it is to make a new alt.
The amount of times I've had to do my email plus side project name, I'm sure there's 13 or 14 of those based on my email in Twitter's database.
Yeah. Well, that was another side project I was going to talk about, actually. I do a reforestation charity now. Anyone else want to get involved? You want to help out? We've got tech.
No.
There's code involved.
I'm so burned out.
We've got an iOS app, and we're building an API so you can see where all the trees are, and we're putting them on maps so you can
kind of name my tree, that whole name your star thing that happened when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that because right now there's a lot. We display what 3 words on there so you can kind of see where they are. Normal coordinates too, and some of them are pretty funny. So I was thinking, one of them was boomers melting students or something like that, and I was well, someone wants to buy that one. So yeah, I'm gonna auction off the funny 3 words ones. But
I think a tree McTree face. You need it.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
So where did this come from though, right? You went from, I don't know, I didn't really hear about trees for a long time that I've known you.
Yeah.
And then now you've devoted your life to trees and reforestation, and walk us through that process.
Yeah, a bit of a funny one. So when I started the bike tour, Matt mentioned I fucked off to the Canary Islands to just ride my bike up and down a volcano until I calmed down because I hated WeWork so much. But after that, I went to Spain, and just the whole way through the middle is so deforested that it's turned into desert, right? Like a lot of people look at how land is now and think that's how it should be, and don't realize that humans made it like that. So literally got pegged in the face with tumbleweed. Not even kidding. There's actual tumbleweed bouncing around. I was coughing up dust, and it had all been deforested just to make a vineyard, right? It's just, as far as the whole valley was just shitty little warped vines that were like a meter tall. And this is kind of what happened everywhere I went. Like I think everyone thinks that nature is somewhere else, and pegged in the face means fucked in the face by a tree in America, right? Thanks, Matt. I got. You're putting these in the chat so I don't read them out, I guess. But now I'm reading them out. Yeah, well, I got smashed in the face, and that probably means fucked as well. A tree had its way with me in the mouth.
We're gonna have to up the rating on this podcast episode.
We're all sober as well. Yeah, well, so anyway, I got attacked by tumbleweed, and basically just everywhere I went, there weren't that many trees. And I used to always think like the nature is somewhere else, right? Like you can get in your car and go to the nature. In America, that's really true. You drive to the nice national park, and you can't go walking around nature in general because you'll get shot, because you're not allowed to just walk around the country like you can in countries like England, which even when you go walking around the countryside, you're just walking around fields and farmers' fields. It's always farmers' fields. And everywhere I went was either agriculture, clear-cut deforestation, or desert that, used to not be desert. And it was really fucking depressing, honestly. I was looking at the map, trying to make the most, trying to deviate away from cities towards natural places, go somewhere that's green on the map, go somewhere that looks like it had trees, and it had trees a month ago, but they cut them down. I was cycling through areas that were national forests that are burnt down, just everywhere. I'm going through the Black Forest in Germany, and it's mostly just like being cut down so they can have dairy cows, right? Like everywhere I went was pretty miserable. And you'd have maybe an hour where you'd go through some trees, and you'd be like, oh, finally, this is nice. I actually got some nature here. And then you go around the corner and there's a fucking casino or something. Like it's just, Europe is more, there are some countries in Europe that have quite a lot of forest cover. Like I think Sweden's like 70%, but the UK is like 13%. And even some of the countries that were 34% were like Germany and things. That's mostly just kind of timber plantations, which there's no nature in it whatsoever. It's just loads and loads and loads of pine shit acidic needles. And so they kill off everything. There's no food for any animals. So there's no animals. So it's just dead quiet. And cycling through somewhere that's dead quiet and you don't hear a single noise for like an hour until you finally hear chainsaws and heavy machinery. It's just fucking depressing. And it will just change the way you think about stuff. Like all that time just cycling around for like a year, seeing deforestation everywhere. So I was trying to raise awareness for ecology for a long time. My friends started, I became friends with the people that run that company. They've got APIs, so you can buy trees we use them on APIs you won't hate. Whenever you buy a book, it's got a Shopify plugin and it will go and buy a tree, right? And so I started helping people get signed up to that, got up to 100,000 trees raised through my profile there. But then they wanted help planting trees in the UK. So I did that. And I ended up locked down on a farm. I was only meant to stay there for a week because it was an Airbnb, but then lockdown happened and I lived there for 3 months and talked them into doing a bit of reforestation, and then talked some other farmers into doing some reforestation. And now we're trying to buy land so that we don't have to keep doing 500 trees here, 1,000 trees there. But we've got 5 farms on board, just planted. We've planted 2,000 trees so far. We've got another 6,000 to 8,000 happening this winter. So yeah, my weekends now, I just cycle somewhere, plant a bunch of trees, and then cycle home again. It's not bad.
So, I mean, I would imagine, you've probably learned a lot about trees and ecology, things like that. When you're planting these trees all over the British farmlands and things like that, is it at least like the natural trees that should be in that area? Or like, are you taking any of that kind of science into consideration when you're doing this?
Yeah. Something I didn't really mention is that there's so many scam artists in the space of reforestation. It's like a really complicated thing to ever talk about, because everyone just assumes that you're doing the wrong thing, right? Like a lot of people have picked up a little bit of information, like actually reforestation is bad sometimes because they read one article about it. And so like it's a really difficult thing to discuss with anyone. some companies, some reforestation companies are just outright taking your money and pretending they planted trees. Some companies are like the ones run by airlines, the offsetting programs. They plant like 100 trees, and then they put a few bushes in a car park somewhere, and then they just like pretend they did 1,000,000 trees. So there's a lot of like ridiculous scammy people out there. So trying to find out how to actually do this was quite tricky because there's a lot of conflicting information. Some companies will absolutely basically. Some companies are planting a bunch of trees because they have the intention of cutting them down, but they're taking carbon credits, keeping them there for the minimum amount of time, and then cutting them down. Some companies are planting, if they're doing kind of carbon credits, they might look for the tree that will absorb the most CO2 possible, and then just smash as many of those type of tree in there as they possibly can. And that's not restoring biodiversity or fixing the imbalance in nature at all, right? That's just you grinding for cash. So we have a conservation officer who has worked for all sorts of people like the Wildlife Foundation and the Royal National Institute of the Birds or something, whatever it's called. And he is an expert at this stuff, picking the right types of trees for the place. So we'll send him out to, south of Wales or up a mountain somewhere, or like the middle of whatever I'm saying, different parts of England you don't know. And we'll just send him off to go and look at what trees should be there and what mixture, what species, what density, should we even plant, right? One bit of land we were looking at, it looked completely empty and useless. And he was like, oh, no, this is really interesting grassland. There's really rare flowers here. This would be better left alone that should just be left alone for light grazing, right? And that would have more CO2 benefits if occasionally sheep came through and chewed some of it. And another time he's like, oh, that's a peat bog. If you plant trees there, you'll release more CO2 than you ever absorb and damage the whole area. So yeah, I'm not a conservation expert, but we have them. There's people out there that need work. I think he lost his job in COVID, so he's happy to pick up some money doing these kind of site surveys. And we've got a bunch of other experts that know a whole lot more than me about the intricate stuff, and I just do what they say.
So what's your next goal with this, right? Like you're trying to actually purchase this plot of land and plant trees on it, and you'll own it like within the org yourself, or is it someone else's land that you're trying to reforest?
Yeah, well, at the moment we do both. We work with existing landowners to try and put trees on their land, which is obviously the cheapest way of doing it. But it's more difficult to guarantee protection, right? Like we can get the people that live there right now to say, oh, we're definitely not going to cut these trees down. I'm happy to sign anything you want saying we're not going to cut these trees down. But then if their kids take over the land in 20, 30 years, maybe they cut it all down, right? And it's really hard to kind of to legal that up. So we're going to do landowner projects to plant trees, because honestly, a huge amount of change needs to happen in 10 years. So regardless of whatever happens in the future, we need to be working on things now. But we also want to really ensure protection. The best thing to do is buy land and keep it in the charity, right? So when it's owned by the charity, because we're a proper registered charity and there's, a board of trustees and stuff, and we're going to get more on over time. But that means that there's a whole bunch of people who would have to agree to do something incredibly shady. Like they'd have to agree to clear cut everything and sell it off to housing investors. And theoretically, if there's a whole bunch of trustees and they all decide to do something shitty, then I picked bad trustees in the first place, I guess. But yeah, these things are really hard and really interesting, and so it's a weird thing. But basically, the model is we're going to try and buy land, keep it in the charity, keep them trees going for a long time. And the tagline I've been using is like, make the ancient forests of the future, right? We're not gonna manage these. We're gonna thin them only as much as is required, because you have to cut down some trees so the rest of them can grow big and strong. Sometimes a deer will thin a few of them for you, and like mice eat them and shit. But yeah, you have to like cut a few down to make sure that they can all reach their full potential. But apart from that, we're not gonna like try and make money from cutting down trees. That's just daft. We're looking into carbon offset credits and things like that, and mostly just partnerships with people like Ecology.
That's cool. I like it, man. So what is what's the next thing for you? Where are you going next? What's your are you going to quit tech to grow trees full time? Be Mr. Phil Treeman or what?
Yeah. I don't know, man. Looking to see if there's as Protect Earth needs tech. I've got a new Dutch company called Green Turtle. I called it Green Turtle after Stoford. I missed that guy.
Oh wait, pause. Where is Stoford?
Yeah, is he still alive?
Stoford was my old turtle was given to a friend in New York, and then they gave it to another friend, and that other friend isn't online. I can't stalk their Instagram to find out how Stoford's doing. I'm really upset. So Stoford is happy but gone. But
well, that took a turn.
Yeah,
that took a sharp turn.
No one cares about my turtle, but
that's not true. We care.
Okay,
that's fine.
So yeah, what the hell was I talking about?
You have a
what's next for you?
Green Turtle.
Oh yeah, Green Turtle. So yeah, I got a Dutch company, and basically APIs You Won't Hate LLC and Stoplight are two of my clients. I've got a few other clients here and there. I do writing and whatever freelance stuff under this Dutch company, and so basically all of the money goes into that company, and then I take out like the bare minimum salary and just try and live as cheap as possible, so that the rest of the money can go into things like I send 2,000 euros to Protect Earth. I'm probably going to try and send a lot more each month, so that we can kind of focus on buying land. And then any tech that they need, we can use Green Turtle to do that. I want to make like a climate tech, like green tech, bike tech company that just makes all sorts of random side projects, but ones that can be monetized. So the first thing we're going to try and do is make a platform where tree planting companies like Protect Earth, like Co-Forest, like Future Forest Company, like One Tree Planted, all these different organizations, large and small, especially the small ones, they can all kind of put in what trees they've been planting, like using the iPhone app that we've got. They can all kind of put the trees that they've done and say, like, these are available to be purchased. And then people like Ecology and other companies that want to plant trees but aren't literally doing the shoveling, they can meet up with those places. So basically kind of like a tree marketplace. And just loads of tech like that.
Tinder for trees?
Tinder for trees. Swipe right if you want to adopt this tree. Well, I shouldn't have said adopt now, it's weird. But yeah, basically just kind of working on green tech, but those are all still side projects. And like I said, my main client is still Stoplight, which is like my full-time job still. But yeah, there's plenty of other time in the day. Seeing as I've been in quarantine, this is my 8th quarantine, so I've had plenty of time to work on other projects. I do a quarantine, write a bunch of emails, order a bunch of trees, and then go and plant them, and then do another fucking quarantine. But hopefully this is the last one.
When's that book going to be done, though?
Never. Zach Kitzmiller's going to maybe help me with Surviving Other People's APIs, which is a book that's been sat on 90% for about a year and a half. But Build APIs, yeah, sure. But Build APIs You Won't Hate 2 is just become too much of a mega book. It's a monolith. It might have to be broken up into micro books because
I am very versed in decoupling monoliths now. So.
Yeah. There's just too many things, man. Like the first one was everything I knew about APIs at the time, which wasn't very much. That's my fault. I shouldn't have written a book when I didn't know that much. But I think the industry has gone such a long way now that it's really hard to try and do everything about APIs without. You could write an entire book on architectural patterns for distributed systems alone, right? You could write a whole book about testing APIs and about deploying APIs and about API gateways and all these different things, designing APIs. Multiple people have written entire books about that. So I keep trying to make the mega book, and I keep thinking maybe I could open source the mega book, and then I keep thinking, fuck it, I should make multiple books, and then I just go and plant trees and ride a bike and drink a cider instead. So I don't know if that'll ever make any progress, but I hope it will.
I'm still just amazed that you're still alive. Just to be perfectly honest.
That is true. I nearly
you almost got me stabbed in New York City that one time. I've heard more stories about you. Actually, the story I've heard about you the most is you and Jacques Woodcock up in Canada. How you survived that one is, let's just face it, a goddamn mystery.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh, he hasn't. And neither is the PHP community. But, we still love you, and we miss you.
Oh, I miss you guys too. That's
Come
why I
back
want
to
to come
this.
back on the podcast, because Ben won't return my text messages unless it's about doing a podcast. So it's the only way I can talk to Ben and catch up.
Phil
I don't
tried
know,
to
Ben
call
sent
me
me
on the
house
phone
pics.
one day, and I was like, "Why is
Oh,
Phil
no.
calling me? I don't want to talk on the phone."
It's a new thing I do. I just randomly call people and then they reject me and then I'm sad.
You don't call me. Now I'm sad.
I talked to you on the podcast.
Once every month. If that.
That's true. All right. I will try better. I will try to be better.
So I mean, okay, so you have you have the reforestation charity, the trust, you have Stoplight. I mean, you've somehow survived a triathlon.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like what else is there for you to do besides write a book? That's never going to happen.
Well, I think the reforestation is going to give me enough kind of creative, enough projects to work on itself, right? If we get this bit of land we're chasing, we're trying to get to £325,000, and we're on like we've got 70 in the bank, and we've got maybe another 150 in investment, but there's still a big gap left. But if we can figure this out, we've got some people working on the business plan right now, but if we can figure that out, then I'm going to get 200 acres of land in the middle of Wales, and I'm going to put 100,000 trees on it. And I think that will be a pretty interesting project. I think the end goal there would be get that one bit of land, whack it full of trees, get another bit of land, whack that full of trees, and keep doing it. Because I've realized the secret to living the lowest possible carbon lifestyle, pikey, you can't call them pikeys, but living that life is basically pretty right. Like living on a caravan with chickens and just cycling everywhere. I feel like I can kind of nail the low carbon footprint lifestyle. And if I can get a few, you can't legally live on charity land, that would be bad. But if there's a few site offices on each one of the pieces of land, and I occasionally, work late and have to rest there, then, and there's enough of them, theoretically. Are we recording this? I don't know. But I just want to plant a whole bunch of trees in a whole bunch of different places. And
Phil's charity's already under investigation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's okay. I'm sure that'll be owned by shell companies.
I mean, that's clearly the legal way to do it is shell companies.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
my sister was really angry. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was gonna say there's like one company in like the Cayman Islands, one building that houses like 8,000 American companies because everyone says they're there, some shit like that.
Surprised.
So.
My sister was really angry with me when she found out that I created Green Turtle. I joked about it being a shell company, and then she was like, "Oh, I get it, turtle, shell," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't think of that." She's like, "What? What is wrong with you?" Anyway.
All right, Phil. So, I mean, I think everyone in the world knows where to find you, but you're still at Phil Sturgeon on Twitter.
Yeah, that's me.
You don't really blog anymore, so if people like want to annoy the shit out of you, then you need to like get on a bike and come with you, or
yeah, please. Cycling by myself is so lonely. But there are 2 blog posts I've done recently on phil.tech that might be of interest to folks on air. There's one about like how cycling around for a long ass time fixed my burnout and shit. Might be a bit repetitive after this podcast, but there's another one about if you're interested in climate stuff, here's literally anything you could do in tech, and whether that's making your hosting green, whether that's integrating existing green technologies and green APIs. There's some really interesting things. Like people are so used to running their cron jobs at midnight, right? It doesn't necessarily matter unless they're big cron jobs, but if you're doing like big cloud computing, running it at midnight, not the best, because the sun isn't up and it might not be windy. So you can use things like electricity map API to forecast when the lowest CO2 intensity of the grid would be and run your expensive computing jobs then. So there's a million ideas of things you can do in your daily lives as a tech person to combat the climate crisis a little bit. And especially if you work at a big company, there's just more chance for money and time and like reach for that to work. So yeah, check that out. But yeah, apart from that, not been blogging all that much.
And then of course you can find us too, not Ben, because we don't invite Ben on, but you can find us too on APIs You Won't Hate as well. talking about APIs and shit like that.
Yeah. I meant to ask you questions about what's going on with you, Ben, but I guess if you pick up the phone next time, then we can do that.
I'll try. No promises.
It's a lot of work to pick up the phone these days. So much work. All right, cool. Phil, thank you so much. Hopefully we didn't take up too much of your time. I know you got pizza coming, so we will.
Oh yeah, where the fuck is that pizza? Yeah. Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, we'll see
Thanks,
you guys next
man.
time.